began like any other morning in Metropolis. The sun rose over steel towers, and people went about their lives, trusting that if anything ever went wrong, Superman would be there to save them. For decades, he had been their symbol of hope, a god among men who chose compassion over power. But no one could have imagined that one day, that same god would turn his gaze against the world he swore to protect. The first sign came quietly. A news broadcast interrupted regular programming. Reports of a chemical explosion in downtown Metropolis. Casualties unknown. Superman arrived within seconds, but what happened next was not rescue. It was annihilation. He stood amidst the wreckage, eyes glowing red, his cape fluttering in the smoke. A single survivor crawled toward him, begging for help. Superman looked down, and in a flash of heat vision, the man was gone. No one knew why. Some said he was under mind control. Others whispered that something inside him had snapped. But the truth was far darker. Days earlier, Lois Lane had died. No alien invasion. No grand villain. Just a small device hidden in her car rigged by the Joker. It was meant for laughs. Another cruel joke on the world's greatest hero. But this time, the laughter never came. Superman found her remains. In that moment, something inside him shattered. The man who once held back his power to protect the weak finally decided to stop holding back. Within hours, Gotham burned. He found the Joker in an interrogation cell. Batman tried to stop him, tried to reason, but all it took was one glare, and the Joker was nothing but ashes. The silence that followed was deafening. Superman turned to Batman and said just one thing: "Never again." Those words would echo across every corner of the planet. They weren't a promise, they were a threat. The next day, Superman appeared before the United Nations. His tone was calm, almost gentle, but his message was absolute. There will be no more wars, no more crime, no more lies. Disobey, and I will stop you myself. First, the world cheered. Peace under Superman sounded like a dream come true. Wars ended overnight. Criminals surrendered in terror. But as days turned to weeks, fear began to spread. Anyone who questioned him disappeared. Governments dissolved. Armies disbanded. What began as peace slowly transformed into control. Batman vanished from the public eye. Wonder Woman stood by Superman's side, believing his actions necessary for order. The Justice League split apart. Some followed him willingly. Others resisted and paid the price. Superman built towers across every major city, monitoring every heartbeat, every whisper, every thought of rebellion. He called it the regime. But deep underground, resistance began to form. Old heroes, new allies, people who remembered what freedom used to feel like. And at their center, Bruce Wayne, hiding in the shadows, planning the unthinkable, bringing down a god. Yet even as Batman gathered his team, he knew the odds were impossible. Superman wasn't just stronger, he was everywhere. Satellites tracked every signal, drones patrolled every street. Humanity had become a world under glass, ruled by a single man who once stood for truth and justice. And the scariest part? Many still believed he was right. As the sky darkened that night, Superman stood alone at the top of his fortress. The stars shimmered above, silent witnesses to his reign. He spoke softly, almost to himself. They called me their savior. Now they'll learn what salvation really means. Lightning flashed across the ice. His eyes glowed once more. And somewhere deep beneath the earth, Batman whispered to his team, "The war for Earth begins tonight." The world no longer had nations, it had sectors. Each ruled under the iron gaze of Superman's regime. Every drone that soared through the air carried his emblem. Every broadcast spoke his words. Every act of defiance was silenced before it began. And yet, whispers of rebellion still survived. Hidden channels. Secret frequencies. A name passed in the dark. The Resistance. Led by Batman, the last man brave or foolish enough to stand against the god in the sky. But Batman knew brute strength couldn't win this fight. Superman could hear a heartbeat from miles away, crush steel with his breath, and burn armies with a glance. The only weapon Bruce had left was faith. Faith in the human spirit. He moved through underground tunnels beneath Gotham, one of the few cities not yet rebuilt under Superman's perfectionist rule. Screens flickered around him, showing images of Superman's latest decrees. Curfews, censorship, executions disguised as corrections. Batman spoke to his team. We can't kill him, but we can remind him who he was. At his side stood Harley Quinn, once a jester of chaos, now a reluctant ally. Green Arrow, scarred but determined. Black Canary, voice trembling with rage and hope. Each had lost someone to the regime. Each carried the same fire that Superman had long extinguished in others. Far above them, Superman was not the man he once was. His eyes held a constant red glow, not just from power, but from exhaustion. He believed he was saving the world. He believed every act of cruelty was justified. In his mind, he was no tyrant. He was a savior misunderstood. But one night, something pierced that delusion. In a small African village, a boy stood before him, holding a charred piece of metal with the Superman symbol on it. The boy's family had been caught in an enforcement strike. Superman's own soldiers had fired. The boy said nothing, he just dropped the emblem in the dirt. For the first time in years, Superman hesitated. The man who could hear every voice in the world suddenly found himself deaf to his own conscience. But before guilt could take hold, Wonder Woman appeared. Don't waver, she told him. They need order, not weakness. And so Superman hardened again. He silenced the boys' village from public record, erased the data. The world never even knew it existed. Still, deep inside, Clark Kent, the farm boy from Kansas, was screaming. But the world no longer remembered Clark. Only Kal-El, the red son of Earth. Meanwhile, the resistance had found hope, Lex Luthor. He wasn't the old enemy anymore. The fall of free nations had changed him. He'd seen what unchecked power could do, and for the first time his ego bowed to purpose. Lex had a plan. Using kryptonite nanotech, he could weaken Superman's cells temporarily, enough to make him vulnerable. But the problem wasn't getting the weapon, it was getting close enough to use it. Batman agreed to be the bait. He sent a coded message directly to Superman's satellites. Meet me at the ruins of Wayne Manor. Superman arrived within minutes. The mansion stood in silence, half buried in ash and vines. Why do you keep fighting, Bruce? He asked. Because someone has to remind you what it means to be human, Batman replied. Superman's expression softened for a heartbeat. Then the heat vision flared. The blast tore through stone, fire spreading across the ruins. Batman dived into the cave below, luring him deeper. The entire encounter was a distraction, while Lex transmitted the kryptonite virus through Superman's command network. For a brief moment, the world felt hope. The virus worked. Superman fell to his knees. His powers flickered. But then, a light erupted from the fortress in the Arctic. Brainiac, the alien intelligence, had been observing Earth's collapse. And now, with Superman weakened, he made his move. Massive ships entered orbit. Cities trembled. For the first time since his fall, Superman wasn't the predator, he was the prey. Batman watched from the shadows as Brainiac's forces descended. He whispered, "We might have just traded one god for another." Superman, bruised but alive, rose again. He looked toward the sky, toward the new invader. And for the first time in years, he wasn't angry. He was afraid. The sky turned black as Brainiac's ships covered the horizon. The air shimmered with static. Buildings trembled. Every screen on Earth lit up with his symbol, 3 glowing circles forming an impossible pattern. This planet's evolution has ended. Brainiac's voice echoed across the world. Your civilization will be preserved and erased. For once, Superman stood silent. The being before him wasn't human, wasn't moral, and didn't care about order or justice. Brainiac was pure logic. He had come not to rule, but to collect. Superman looked to the heavens, his fists tightening. The same power that had enslaved the Earth now stood between it and extinction. He whispered to himself, If I created this world out of fear, I'll destroy it out of guilt. He launched into the sky, cutting through clouds like fire through oil. His heat vision flared, slicing through Brainiac's drones. But this time, his strength was diminished. The kryptonite virus still burned in his veins. Brainiac's voice filled the air again. You cannot stop me, Kal-El. You have already done my work for me. You unified your species. Through fear. Down below, Batman watched the chaos unfold on screens deep within the Resistance's bunker. He saw Superman fighting not as a tyrant, but as the world's last shield. He made a choice that surprised even himself. He activated the comms. Clark, listen to me. Superman froze mid-air, hearing the voice that had once been his greatest enemy. You can't win alone, Batman said. We'll fight with you. For a long second, there was only silence. Then Superman whispered, You still believe in them? No, Batman replied. I believe in you. The Resistance emerged from hiding. Wonder Woman, Green Lantern, Cyborg, Black Canary, and others, all who had once fought against Superman, now turned their weapons toward the sky. Humanity's final army stood shoulder to shoulder with its fallen god. The battle that followed was chaos. Metropolis became a war zone. Streets melted from plasma fire. Brainiac's tentacled ships tore through skyscrapers while Superman and Wonder Woman struck them down like thunder gods. At one point, Brainiac himself descended, cold, silver, flawless. His mechanical tendrils pierced the earth, absorbing data, memories, entire cities into his collection. He turned to Superman. You are not unique. You are a variable. A failed equation. Superman roared, tearing through him, but every fragment of Brainiac rebuilt itself instantly. His intelligence spread across 1,000 machines, each one alive. Batman arrived on the battlefield, driving an armored carrier laced with kryptonite energy. Lex now, he shouted. Lex Luthor, piloting a mech of his own design, unleashed the remaining virus through a pulse wave. It didn't just weaken Superman this time, it infected Brainiac's systems, confusing his calculations. For a moment, the alien hesitated. That was all Superman needed. He flew into the heart of Brainiac's ship, dragging the core reactor into the stratosphere. The energy began to overload. Clark, you won't survive that. Batman's voice thundered through the calm. Then maybe I don't deserve to, Superman replied softly. A flash brighter than the sun erupted across the sky. The explosion swallowed Brainiac's fleet and Superman with it. For hours, there was only silence. The world waited. Cities smoldered. People prayed. Then, through the haze of smoke, a single figure fell from the clouds. Cloaked in ash, cape torn, chest scorched, but alive. Superman landed in the ruins of Metropolis, his knees buckling. Batman approached, limping, armor cracked. You did it, he said. Superman looked up, eyes tired. No, Bruce. We did. He collapsed to his knees, staring at the wreckage of his empire. He had saved humanity, but only after breaking it. The world slowly began to rebuild. The regime dissolved. Cities reclaimed their freedom. Statues of Superman were torn down, only to be rebuilt again by those who still believed in him. Years passed. Myths replaced facts. Some called him a monster, others a savior. But the truth lay somewhere in between. One night, deep in the Fortress of Solitude, Batman visited him. Superman lived in exile, his powers fading but his conscience awake again. You could rule the world again, Batman said quietly. I never wanted to rule it, Superman replied. I just wanted to save it. I forgot the difference. Batman nodded. Then maybe this time you'll remember. They stood in silence as the snow fell outside. Two broken men, bound by guilt and hope, watching the dawn break over a world that would never truly forget them. And though the age of gods had ended, humanity had learned one eternal truth. Power without compassion is the fastest path to destruction. But sometimes, even an evil Superman can find his way back to the light.